Hello, and thank you for joining us for Journey to Building a More Inclusive Workforce. My name is Joanne, and I'm your technical producer. During the presentation, you may ask questions at any time by using the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. There is also a chat button that you may use to communicate with presenters and attendees, similar to a discussion board. When sending a chat, you have the option to send to just the presenters or presenters and all attendees. Presenters will respond to questions in the Q&A box, so please be sure to put your questions there. If you need assistance at any time, please also use the Q&A box. Thank you, and now I'll turn it over to today's presenters to get us started.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to our session on our journey to building a more inclusive workforce. My name is Jaymi Cohen, and I am a consultant with Public Consulting Group. First, just want to double check that we are sharing. Oops, 1 second.
And the slides are sharing, and it looks good. Sounds good
All
too.
right. Can you hear me loud and clear?
Very clear. Thank you.
Great. All right. So welcome to our session today. My name is Jaymi Cohen, and I am a consultant with Public Consulting Group on our Aging and Disability team. I was also Andrew's supervisor for his 10-month internship at PCG, and he will be presenting with me today. You'll also hear from MGH Aspire Works, the partner organization that supported both Andrew and PCG throughout the entire internship experience, in addition to Andrew's former colleagues at PCG. So first, I just want to give some background information on PCG. So Public Consulting Group is a national management consulting firm that primarily serves public sector health, education, and human services organizations. My Aging and Disability team at PCG specifically works with State Department agencies around the country to help support people with disabilities and people who are aging. Some of the work we do with state agencies include the following. We design, develop, and implement home and community-based waiver programs. We develop and implement evidence-based and innovative employment programs for transition age youth and adults with disabilities. We design and support coordinated systems that enhance integration in and continued access to the wider community, including transportation and housing. And we also conduct trainings on a variety of topics, including the home and community-based services final rule and person-centered thinking and person-centered practices. Now, while we work to help clients achieve better supports and services for people with disabilities, we are simultaneously working to build a more inclusive workforce at PCG. So today, I am talking about our company's role as an employer and my role as Andrew's supervisor. However, this is not a story about best practices or successes just yet. This is a story of our company's understanding of the power of inclusion and our journey to get there. I will share the challenges and barriers we faced and continue to face, and I will also share a lot of successes and lessons learned thus far. So first, I have a poll for everyone, and to respond, you can either go to pollev.com/Jaymi Cohen 341, or you can text the number 22333, and in the text message, you would write Jaymi Cohen 341. So I'll leave this slide up here for a little bit so you can follow those instructions, and then once you respond, they will populate on the screen. And so again, the question is, what do you think some of the perceived barriers are to hire people with disabilities? You can also enter any responses you have into the chat function as well if you're having trouble with the poll. And I will also put the instructions in the chat. So far, we have communication, transportation, support. Someone said they aren't capable of performing necessary job functions. I'll give everyone just one more minute here. Someone else said assumed incompetence won't fit in here. They are slow. Scheduling. The more people have said communication, attitudes and perceptions. Stigma, definitely. Great. Attitudes and perceptions, not flexible, pigeonholing, skills, low intelligence. Great. So again, these are all some of the perceived barriers to why employers may not necessarily hire people with disabilities, or why they think it might be challenging. Great. There's some more here. Flexibility, liability, laws, money. Great. Thank you. We'll have another poll towards the end of the presentation as well, too. So one of the first strategies that we leveraged as a company on our journey to building a more inclusive workforce was establishing key partnerships, both with Mass General Hospital, Aspire Works, and Work Without Limits. And we've also launched more initiatives with our Diversity and Inclusion Council and work groups at PCG to push our efforts toward creating more inclusive employment opportunities for people with disabilities. So recently we hosted our second annual Disability Mentoring Day this past year, which is a day full of networking, meetings, panel discussions, and we engaged colleagues at PCG across all areas of the company. And both days were really successful networking opportunities for both the mentees and for the people at PCG that participated to establish those connections. Today, we're going to focus on this third bullet here on the internship. And we hosted Andrew, who's also on today. He interned with us for 10 months, and we worked with MGH Aspire Works to find Andrew and have this internship. The internship was initially supposed to only be for 2 months. However, because we were so impressed with Andrew and his contributions to projects, the 2-month internship led to a 10-month internship. And while colleagues were continuously impressed with Andrew's work, there were some initial challenges that we faced with the internship. First, finding the right project and team fit for Andrew was an initial challenge. Andrew said that he was open to working with any team and really doing any type of task or working on any project. And we really wanted to figure out how to capitalize on Andrew's strengths and make sure it was a great experience for both Andrew and the team he worked with at PCG. Second, we really tried to think creatively about exposing Andrew to various teams and types of work. And we ultimately decided, after he worked with a few different teams, we wanted to also engage our legal team because we knew Andrew had a background and a lot of skills as a paralegal. And that's really where he thrived, was with the legal team. This next slide, you'll be hearing from MGH Aspire Works, who again was our partner, and they'll talk some more about their specific program.
Hi, my name is Leslie O'Brien. I'm the program manager for Aspire Works at MGH Aspire. I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about our intervention, our collaboration with PCG, and what this looks like working on neurodiversity in the workplace. Just a quick overview about us. We're MGH Aspire, so we're part of Mass General Hospital and Mass General Hospital for Children. We work with children's, teens, and adults throughout the academic year and during the summer to support them in becoming more independent, and specifically with Aspire Works, more independent in the workplace. For Aspire Works, we're connected to over 60 employer partners in the greater Boston area, up to New Hampshire, down to Rhode Island, and out to Worcester, and really supporting these different companies in being more inclusive, as well as supporting individuals on the autism spectrum and similar profiles, much like neurodiverse profiles of ADHD, social anxiety, dyslexia, dyspraxia, et cetera, that are really a part of this and helping to support them transition successfully into the workplace. I'll go into that a little bit deeper detail in a moment. So just a note on our 3S model, we focus on social competency, stress management, and self-awareness in all of our programming for children, teens, and adults. The next piece is really thinking about how that impacts each stage. So for Aspire Works in general, we're thinking more about social competency when it comes to connecting with your colleagues, when it comes to greetings in the office, having meetings, how to navigate some of those tricky situations or social nuances and norms and expectations of the workforce and what you're really working through. Speaking of working through, stress management is a really important aspect of this. We think a lot about, do you have the tools that will help you to be successful in the workplace? Have you built them? Is this one of your first experiences in the workplace? And do you know what is expected and how to regulate if needed? And then the last piece is thinking about self-awareness. Do you know what your strengths and challenges are? Can you advocate for yourself? And really bringing some of those pieces to light. Next is really thinking about, why? Why is it that we're paired with all of these employers? Why are employers looking into neurodiversity and accessibility, inclusivity? Really, one of the biggest barriers for individuals on the autism spectrum or these related profiles is the social competency piece and the communication piece. So even in starting an interview or one of the biggest barriers can be that process where typically it's a social competency test. You're sitting down and people are assessing whether or not you can have a reciprocal conversation and be a part of the team rather than can you do the role and are you able to access more of the capability needed in order to be successful in this. And so really we talk a lot about work samples and other ways to really assess what the person's ability is and if they can do the role rather than just carry on a conversation. Just to speak a little bit about Aspire Works, so as I mentioned, we work with employers. We also work with participants. On the participant side of things, we have our internship program, which is our collaboration that we had with PCG, which you're hearing a little bit more about. We have one-on-one career counseling, our alumni community, and parent coaching. On the employer side, we're supporting them through the internship program. So if employers are saying, we really want to try this out, we have certain departments or teams that would like to have an intern, here's the role that we need filled. And we take a lot of different pieces into consideration, which I'll go into a little bit more detail in just a moment, when we're matching interns and making sure that it's a positive fit for them to move forward as far as on the participant side, but also really what the employer needs and what they're looking for. There's consultation and coaching. That's something that we've built over time in recognizing that employers are really looking for that psychoeducation. They want to be successful in building an inclusive environment. And then there's workshops. This could be about interviewing, management and culture practices, feedback, evaluation practices as well. And then lastly, workforce development programs. We've paired with a number of different agencies or organizations that are looking to build an internship program within rather than just have interns matched. So that's additional support that we've created over the years. So just to give a little bit of a deeper dive, and then I'll let you get back to the great presentation with PCG today. Our internship program, when we're first meeting individuals, we're assessing if they're a match for some of our employer partners, depending on what cycle we're in. So we meet with interns for fall, spring, and summer internships. The largest one we have is during the summer, and that's typically based on not only the participants that are in college or coming out of college, some are also coming out of high school and taking a gap year, and those that are earning their PhDs and still looking for that support or transition into the workforce. We're looking at their profiles, we're looking at the support that they need, and we're looking at their experience, what they're interested in, what are their goals, what are their areas of challenge, what are their great strengths they really want to enhance. On the employer side, we're really looking at their environment, what are the location needs, supervision, what's their mentor like, would this match the intern, and vice versa. Making sure that the challenges and strengths are going to be addressed as well as any sensory or other needs that might be there. And that's in taking into consideration what's the role, what's the job description, what are the requirements of the job, be it education, technological programming, or anything else that we need to take into consideration when doing the vetting process for our employers. And then the last piece is really that supporting them through the process. So once there's a match, We're supporting the employer on their side as going through their interview process. We're also supporting the intern by having some interview prep time, going with them either physically or virtually to the interview and giving some feedback afterwards, and then going through the process of any of that onboarding support. There is a weekly consultation with a career counselor throughout their internship on both sides, again, for the employer as well as the intern, and site visits as safely as possible. And then lastly, thinking through the 12 weeks of an internship cycle, the intern is also engaged in seminars throughout. So not only do they have that one-on-one career counseling or consultation, and so do the employers, there's a really good feedback loop there, but the intern is also involved in some skill building throughout. So while they have this feedback time with other interns and a cohort of interns that are placed in a variety of sites, they're also spending the second hour of a 2-hour seminar going into detail about executive functioning skills, interviews, networking, self-care, self-advocacy, you name it, throughout all 12 weeks. And then we set them up for what's their transition plan afterwards. There isn't an expectation or a guarantee of a job afterwards, though it does happen sometimes, depending on if there is that availability to move forward. And then on the employer side, we have given them a foundational training before the intern begins. We're giving that support throughout, and we check back in to refine and support them as they go through the process and thinking about their next intern and next cycle. So that's a bit about us and what we've done to really pair and connect with PCG. I hope you enjoy the rest of the presentation.
Great. So next you'll be hearing from Andrew himself about how his internship experience was with PCG. So Andrew, I will hand it over to you.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Andrew Marsh, and as Jaymi said, I was an intern at Public Consulting Group for roughly 10 months, give or take. I entered Public Consulting Group and started in the Human Services Department and completed a variety of tasks my supervisors asked of me. It was kind of like a jack of all trades kind of thing at first. Eventually, I transferred to the legal department where I supported the chief paralegal and attorneys by proofreading contracts, researching Canadian trademark law, redacting sensitive documents, so on and so forth. I worked within Public Consulting Group, bouncing between human services and legal for about 9 to 10 months until the COVID-19 pandemic really hit. At that point, the internship was terminated due to a company-wide hiring freeze. At this point, I'm still unemployed and I'm evaluating my career options. My experience at Public Consulting Group was overall enlightening as I took on a variety of tasks that were new to me, and I had a number of supervisors that were approachable and available to ask questions if I needed them, and that's honestly something I believe is important for any company to offer to its employees.
Great. Thanks, Andrew. On this next slide, we have some testimonials of people that worked with Andrew throughout his internship, supervisors, coworkers, and then one of his supervisors in legal is going to share her experience with Andrew.
When I was asked about participating in the placement of a candidate from Aspire into an intern position with legal, I was initially a bit hesitant. I knew that we needed help on many projects as we were building the legal department. I knew I had a lot of knowledge to impart and knew that that knowledge would help a young person develop a budding legal career. What I didn't think I possessed were the skills necessary to be an effective supervisor and/or mentor to a person with ASD. What I did know is that I was interested in learning those skills. I understood there might be some limitations around social norms, that adjustments to my sense of humor and how I give instructions was necessary. I wanted to be the best example I could be. It turns out it was easier than I expected. Kindness and compassion are really all it took. What I learned from Andrew is that while he was acutely aware of his limitations, he worked extremely hard and effectively at being part of the legal team. He was incredibly smart and motivated to get any task done efficiently and completely. He took the time to understand what the end goal was and why we were hoping to achieve that goal. He was clear in how he best took instruction, and as long as we could work on that together, we were successful. Andrew taught me a lot about our local legislature. I often turn to him with questions around how policy is made and what the process of presenting a bill to the House and/or Senate in Massachusetts are. I love that Andrew would be comfortable enough to ask me if a particular behavior was appropriate or not, and that he wanted to work hard on his growing social skills. He was caring and often would offer to bring me tea if I had a sniffle, or to just sit and tell me stories of his family and friends. He talked to me about his fear of not getting a job and his desire to work full-time and be able to support himself one day. Andrew was an inspiration, and given the chance, I'd work with him again. Unfortunately, at the time, we were fully staffed and unable to offer him a permanent position. What a pleasant experience this turned out to be. Andrew, I wish you the best in all that you do.
Okay. And so one of our key takeaways is that it's about the journey just as much as the destination of being diverse and inclusive. Our lessons learned are just as important as that ultimate goal to increase and expand competitive integrated employment opportunities for people with disabilities. And while we do have some lessons learned, you've obviously also learned that Andrew is not working currently with PCG. We did have that hiring freeze because of COVID-19, and he's still looking, actively looking for career options now. Some lessons learned that I want to briefly talk about. Number one is to bring colleagues on board and find your group of champions to spearhead these types of initiatives, and also take advantage of partnerships and existing training opportunities. For example, with MGH Aspire, they hosted an in-person disability etiquette training, and our company had the most attendees out of every other employer there, which demonstrated our company's commitment and excitement to hire more people with disabilities. And then I would also say capitalize on supports in place. Like you heard from MGH Aspire Works, they provided so much support both to Andrew and ourselves to have that feedback loop, and really had some great ideas for us to continue to improve the internship experience. Another lesson learned that I would say is make sure you get feedback from the intern. Andrew and I had check-ins every week, and often at Starbucks. And I think making sure that we heard from you, Andrew, was a critical part to making sure that we were offering the best internship experience we could. And then also just we were making sure that we included Andrew on company-wide events, whether it was happy hours or lunches that we had, year-end parties, any other company events. And then one of the challenges we initially faced was helping Andrew navigate some of the social interactions and social norms with our company. For example, if Andrew had a question, he often would come up to my desk while I was in the middle of a client call, which was hard to tell because I was just using my headset. So, we worked through some of those things and eventually came up with a system where he would write down any of the questions that he had and brought them to me when I was available. And then another challenge, like I said earlier on, was just finding the right work for Andrew, making sure that he felt challenged. And it was important for me to learn what Andrew was passionate about and, interested in learning, and what skills he wanted to work on, and making sure we had a system in place to support him and help him thrive. In terms of our next steps, so we're going to continue to build relationships and work with existing partners. I think we also need to do a better job of engaging human resources, within our circle of champions, I should say. I think we can do a better job engaging more people in our HR department, so that we have a better sense of, what positions are available. How can we make sure that these internships do turn into full-time positions? I would also say advocate for disability as part of our diversity and inclusion initiatives, broaden the disability internship and disability mentoring day to increase our impact and reach, participate in additional events with different partners. And then I guess one big step is to be patient and persistent, because these things don't happen overnight. But we're going to continue to advocate, even if sometimes you're the only voice in the room. You should never be satisfied with where you are. So we challenge you to start a similar journey or share ideas with us about what we can do better. To some extent, it takes a level of humility to, if you're an employer, to look at your own workspace and culture to start on a similar journey. But with that, we have another poll here. And we want to know, do you have any suggestions on next steps for either PCG or for Andrew? And again, you can follow the instructions that I put in the chat to respond to the poll through Poll Everywhere, or you can also send something in the chat itself. So again, we're asking if anyone has suggestions on next steps for PCG or for Andrew. So someone here said, Andrew worked through Zoom. Continue to network. We'll give it just a few more seconds here. I know it can take some time to use the poll. Someone else said, understand the disability disclosure and the hiring process and teach Andrew to understand his own mission and vision. Stay in the career development process. It can be an internship through Zoom. Andrew could apply to every top-end firm and convince them why he's the best candidate. I have a friend working at Deloitte and Rockefeller Plaza as a result of his stick-to-itiveness. There are some questions here too that we'll get to, but on the screen here, so keep researching potential job interests, apply for jobs even if you don't meet all requirements. These are some great suggestions. Engage Andrew in mock interviews. Andrew could go back to school for law. Andrew, is that something you're interested in?
Well, given that I've been kind of out of the paralegal profession for most of the year, I might have no choice, if only to just refresh the education I already had.
Someone else wrote in the chat, Andrew, your experience sounds similar to mine. I say networking and continuing, putting yourself out in the that might be community. You have such great talents, and showcasing them to a group of people is highly important. Definitely. There was a question asking if this was part-time or full-time work, and this was part-time. Andrew, I can't remember how many days a week you actually worked and how many hours. Do you remember?
It was somewhere between 2 and 3. I think it was 3 days a week, and I think the hours a week was around 18, give or take.
That sounds about right. We have some more responses here. So if a place isn't hiring, but they do have volunteer opportunities, consider volunteering there in order to build relationships. There's another one up top here. Create a website portfolio to share about all of your amazing experience. Someone else suggested Andrew can apply to companies internationally, not just the United States. Andrew, anything else you would add for next steps on your end as you're navigating your different career options?
Let's see. At this point, not very much. I will say that even though this is unrelated to law or legal work, I have been able to make some small sporadic bursts of income by writing fanfic commissions on the internet. So, so I've been considering whether or not I should just become like a stay-at-home novelist, since apparently I can at least make some money off of that.
Right. I remember you telling me about that. Okay. We also, the next portion of our presentation is actually going to be if anyone has questions, and we've seen a bunch of questions come in so far, so we can respond to those. And if anyone else has questions, please feel free to put them in the Q&A function in Zoom. So someone asked, I'm a bit confused about the interns being placed into companies that are at capacity job-wise. What do the recruiting efforts look like before the candidates are placed there? Further, are these unpaid internships? So our work with MGH Aspire works, even though we were at capacity job-wise, we did have the capacity to hire an intern on certain projects. And again, as one of my next steps and our company's next step, we're really looking to work more with our human resources department so that we can better understand what the capacity is job-wise. But the internships were paid, and as MGH Aspire spoke to, they don't have the expectation that the internships will lead to full-time employment. That was definitely our goal and our hope for Andrew. And again, it was initially a 2-month internship, which we extended, and Andrew wanted to continue working at PCG through that paid internship. However, as we've said, unfortunately, it was not able to lead to full-time employment. So I think in terms of the recruiting efforts, we have our diversity and inclusion councils and work groups. And as we continue to move forward and engage with human resources, we'll have a better sense of how we can better recruit. I don't work in our human resources department. So, again, that's one of our first next steps. And then the question, are these internships paid internships? Yes, they are paid. And that is a decision that the employer can make. We decided that we did want to have the internship be a paid internship. I'm not sure if that is the same at all employers that are working with MGH Aspire. Any other questions about our experience, or again, any other suggestions on next steps for an employer or for Andrew? I might add too that Andrew did run for office previously. So I think I've said this to you before, Andrew, but I think he should run for office again at some point.
I appreciate that.
I'm not seeing any other questions come in the chat or Q&A, but Andrew and I can stick on, and if anyone wants to send us a chat, we can respond to that, but we'll stay on for a few more minutes.
Okay.
Someone else gave a suggestion to talk to people in your social circle and see if they know of work. Is that something, Andrew, that you've done in the past?
In the past, I've tried. Usually it hasn't led anywhere. Part of it is just like the region that like I live in. It's like the internship location, as we both know, was in Boston, a huge bustling city that has a bunch of like medium and large size companies. But like Worcester County, where I live in, a lot of like the firms or companies or whatever are kind of like small mom and pop size shops, or other small companies. And so because of their small size, even if I could land something, And on one occasion I did. The problem is that like those companies or firms don't have like enough supervisors or people above me who can really serve in the sort of mentorship role that you and Lisa did, just because there's not enough to both teach me the ropes and keep the basic company going at the same time.
Right. Someone else said, great suggestion to Will, who said, engage Andrew in mock interviews. Andrew, I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about the interviews that you worked with MGH Aspire on, because we did have an interview before the internship started. So I'm curious what that preparation looked like, or how you felt going into the interview.
Gosh, that was so long ago, I don't even remember.
I do remember that's when we asked you what type of work you would be specifically interested in, and you said you were open to, any project, working with any team. You weren't really sure what your specific strengths were until you tried something. Did you have any practice interviews with MGH Aspire before you interviewed with PCG?
Probably at least one, but like I said, I don't remember exactly.
Mm-hmm. Someone else asked a question here. Can it be possible for Andrew to be either a peer supporting or a mentor to new future interns? I think that's a really great idea. Andrew, it could be something like you meeting with future potential interns or actual interns to talk about your experience and mentor them through their experience.
Okay.
That's a really great idea. And I wonder if that's something we could talk with MGH Aspire about too, because, I'm sure there are other interns who would be, or former interns who would be interested in doing that.
I'd be willing to explore it.
Great. Any other questions or comments from anyone on the session today? All right. Well, thank you all, especially for participating in those polls and sharing some of these suggestions on next steps and asking some really great questions. We really appreciate you attending today's session and getting to talk with both Andrew and myself. And I hope everyone has a great rest of your day.
Thank you so much. And as we prepare for our next session, we will be closing this session. Thanks again for joining us today. Enjoy the rest of your conference experience. Take care.